Hello and welcome back to Joe's Math Tools. In our session today, we are converting a decimal number in the hundredths position into a mixed fraction. So if you're ready, let's get started. We're going to begin converting our first example into a mixed fraction. And for this example, we're going to go through the step-by-step process as we did with the video in the tens place when we were changing those decimal numbers into a mixed fraction. And I will only be going through this step for the first example. And for the ones that follow, we will go straight from the decimal number into our mixed fraction. So whenever converting your mixed fraction into a decimal number, a good way to start would be to change it into words or to think of it in your word form. Now for our decimal number that's on the screen, in word form, this number would be 1 75 hundredths. And remember that your decimal number is always written in the same standard form usually. Well, the decimal part of the number is still written in its same numerical form, but the only thing that is different is remember that we always add the position of the last digit in that number at the end of our words. So because my 5 is in the hundredths position, I will still write my 75, but just write hundredths at the end of that word. So our decimal number is 1 75 hundredths. So this means when we're changing our decimal number into its word form, that my 1 represents my whole number. I'm going to use a addition sign in place of my decimal point that we use with and. Then I'm going to write my 75 in my numerator, and the hundredths will be written in my denominator. So we have 1 for our whole number, my plus sign to represent my and, my 75 is the numerator, and the hundredths is my denominator. So as a fraction, this is 1 75 hundredths. So you can see that with your fractions, when you're writing them in word form, is the same way that you would write your decimal number in their word form. The only difference is one is written as a decimal, one will be written as a fraction. Now because my fraction can't be simplified, I'm going to do my working for my 75 hundredths at the side. So whenever your fraction can be reduced, remember to always simplify it. Now with 75 and 100, a common factor that both of these numbers has is 25. So I'm going to reduce both of these fractions by 25. So 75 divided by 25 will equal to 3, and 100 divided by 25 will equal to 4. And an important thing to remember when you have reduced this fraction and you're now going to write it back, remember that you do not, I have to stress, you do not leave the 1 off. Remember that that 1 is still a part of your fraction. That is the whole number part of your fraction. And because you did not do any working on that number, you make sure to return it back to your fraction. So our fraction in its simplest form will be 1 3/4. So our decimal number 1 75 hundredths as a fraction in its simplest form is 1 3/4. So let's try some other examples. Feel free at this point to pause the video, convert this decimal number into its fractional form, and then when you're ready, you can unpause the video and work along with me. Okay, so let's begin. So when changing our 5 3/100ths into its fraction form, remember that your 5 represents the whole number. My 3 will be written in my numerator, and 100 will be written in my denominator. So our mixed fraction for our decimal number 5 3/100ths is 5 3/100ths, or 3 in my numerator, 100 in my denominator. Let's try our final example. So by this point, hopefully you're able to work through this a little bit quicker. So my decimal number 6 and 42 hundredths, when written as a fraction number, will be 6 and 42 in your numerator, 100 in your denominator, which is 6 and 42 hundredths. So like our first fraction, this fraction can also be simplified. So we're going to simplify this fraction on the side. So both 42 and 100 can be divided by 2. And 42 divided by 2 will equal to 21. And 100 when divided by 2 is equal to 50. So now that we have reduced this fraction to its simplest form, we're now going to rewrite the fraction, remembering to put the 6 back. Do not leave off your whole number. So whenever you simplify a fraction and there's a whole number part, remember to always write the whole number part back. So our fraction in its simplest form would be 6 and 21/50th. So there you have it. We just converted 3 decimal numbers into their mixed fraction form, remembering that we just simply write our whole number part and then add on our fractional part, which is the decimal part of our number. So remember to simplify your fractions wherever it is possible, and make sure that you always return the whole number back to your simplified fraction. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you, and we're going to see you next time in the next video. And remember, this is Choose Math Tools, where we make math easy.